80s, my interviewee was a lady named Dolores Bennett. She is my best friend's mother. So, the 80s, what do you remember about the 80s, if anything at all? I'm sure this class kind of looks pretty young, not familiar to the 80s. But when you hear someone talk about the 80s generation, what comes to mind? Is it like drugs, sex, rock and roll, swirls and colors? Or that, do you think more political, like Mr. Reagan, Reaganomics, and all that fun stuff? All of which is pretty much true. Personally, I only look into history when I have to do a paper, or when it's things like my hobbies, like tattoos and motorcycles. In the 80s, fashion was really big. And when I mean really big, they bring new meaning to the word bigger is better. Of course, the hair. A little citation from Miss Dolores was Jordache jeans. There's an advertisement there for Jordache jeans. I don't really know what they are, but apparently everyone who was anyone had to have Jordache jeans. Yeah, like I said, the hair was huge, makeup, anything to set yourself apart, make yourself crazy and wild. Girls had big hair, big shoulder pads, lots of makeup, lots of huge patterns on their clothes, leg warmers, headbands. Guys were more into just denim jackets, shirts, jeans, big hair as well. They had the mullet, the full house Jesse with the huge hair. But not everyone was worried about what they had on, like wearing. They'd rather set themselves apart by tattoos and whatnot. Does anybody know who this guy is? Thank you. His real name is Norman Collins. Although he died in 1973, he was believed to pave the road for all types of tattoo designs, from the sailor pinup girls, which he was special for, to tribal, or something called Chicano, which is like sugar skulls, Mexican like gang affiliated bandanas, all that script writing. In a political aspect, Mr. Ronald Reagan, our 40th president, came into office after a crushing victory against Jimmy Carter. He always promised bigger tax cuts, smaller government, stuff like that, just to help the man who has money keep his own money. He had an economic plan to reduce government spending and tax cuts for individuals and corporations. So, like I said, he'd keep more of his money. He wanted, since you had the money, he thought that you were going to spend it with goods and investments in other businesses. History Channel's website said while he was in president, the U.S. and Soviet agreed to a nuclear freeze, which almost 1 million people rallied in Times Square to support the freeze. It was one of the biggest rallies that the general public came together with. Since the war wasn't coming to an end, the Reaganomics failed. His economic plan wasn't really sought out for what it was. And military spending was in the 10 million. That sounds like some more little background information from Mr. Reagan was he used to be the governor of California, which kind of scared me when I thought about that, because I can't imagine Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger as president. But he's also a movie actor and whatnot. The public loved him, even with all his Reaganomics failing and whatnot. The military spending was in the tens of millions, which caused millions of layoffs here in the country. With all the layoffs and the gas prices were thought of being too high at $1.27 in the 80s, they were looking into more technology into motorcycle related. Motorcycle technology took off in the 80s from water-cooled engines. Before they only had the Harleys, the V-twins, the Fittens that were just air-cooled, that as soon as you ride it cools off. But now, in the 80s, the engineers took a turn to produce the liquid-cooled design on all production motorcycles. Some other inventions in the 80s on motorcycles were the shaft-driven. All bikes in the 70s, 80s were mostly shaft-driven. They didn't really branch out into anything else except for they started looking into belt-driven bikes for like you see on the Harleys and whatnot, and chain-driven bikes. More the engines opened up. Mostly they only had either single cylinders or V twins, and now they have V4s, straight sixes. They put turbos on those. It's crazy. On a website I saw some pictures on this guy named Martin Albright. Thought, or he feels that the VMAX, which is the one up there, is the only 80s bike that's still in production today, which this is the VMAX today. Has the basic similar designs, the V4, liquid cooled, everything, shaft driven. Basically the same, nothing's really changed since the 80s. As random and all over the place as the speech was, it does relate to the randomness and entertainment of the 80s. Some may or may not have, some of you may or may not have known, and some of which, like hair and all the big stuff, should stay in the 80s. With the economy getting back on track and the war coming to an end, and the hair deflating, wraps up just a small part of the 80s generation that I've looked into. A lot has changed since the 1980s, and it's thought as unstoppable force as the U.S. is, change will continue. It can be helpful and it can be hurtful, but always consistently ongoing.